To start off tonight, we have Rabbi Sprung from Congregation Or Torah. It's an honor to have Rabbi Sprung. Go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure and an honor to get to learn with everybody here tonight. And time is very short, and we're here to learn Torah, so let's just jump right in. But I just want to let you all know I'm very appreciative of you being here, and I appreciate the CRC setting up this really special community program. And I'm just really happy to take part in it. So, without further ado, I believe that the packet was shared in the chat, but if it wasn't, don't worry, just follow along with me on the screen. Let's get started. So we have a fundamental question over here. Can I lose the special Kedusha, the special sanctity that I have that comes from being a Jew? Is it possible to lose that sanctity? Can I lose my status as a Jew? So listen to this amazing thing that we find in the Torah. So Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher, the Baal HaTurim, is one of the really very important, prominent poskim in all of Jewish history. So his Arba Turim on Jewish law become the fundamental basis for all, I guess what you would call pre-modern and modern and contemporary halacha. All of it gets organized in accordance with his organization. Listen to what he said. Listen to what he says. Katav, you can see my cursor, you can follow along that way. Source number one, Katav Rashria Gaon. So Rashria Gaon wrote, Nafla lifnei mumar biyavan. There was a case of a woman whose husband passed away. They didn't have any children. And as we know, there is an institution in Judaism called Yibum. So the Torah tells us that if a man and a woman are married and they do not have children, and the man has some brothers, and if, God forbid, the man passes away, so now there is a special halachic link, a special connection, which requires either Yibum or Chalitza for the widow to either marry one of the brothers through the institution called Yibum, or for them to not get married through the institution called Chalitza. The link between them can only be fulfilled through Yibum or dissolved through Chalitza. So now we have a case that happened in Yavan in Greece, and Nafla lifnei mumar. So this man died, and this woman now has this halachic connection that she could, or she needs to potentially either get Yibum or Chalitza from a mumar, someone who has rejected Judaism. Shehorato v'leidato b'kedusha, who was born and raised in Kedusha, meaning he was born as a regular Jew. He wasn't born rejecting Judaism. He wasn't raised in a family that rejects all that we believe and stand for. Zkuka liyavam, she has a connection now, a halachic connection to this yavam, and in fact, umit anga ad chalitza, she is stuck. She is in limbo. She's anchored to him until she gets chalitza, and that connection is dissolved. However, listen to the following. The Rav Yehuda Katav, Rav Yehuda Gaon wrote the following. Ikida naspa ba'ala have yavam mumar. If at the time that they got married, this woman and her husband, the yavam, this brother was already in mumar, who rejected Judaism, lo ba'i chalitza, then there is no need for her to get chalitza, to dissolve that special link in between them. Chalitza minei from him, v'im haya haba'al mumar v'yoshevet tachtav, and if in fact the husband was a mumar, someone who decided he was going to reject Judaism, let's say in favor, God forbid, of Christianity or Hinduism or whatever, and she stayed with him at that time, umet, and he died during that time period, b'himruto, when he was rebelling against God, below banim, without any children, eina tzricha yibum. She has no need for yibum, because the halachot of yibum only apply to someone who is an ach, someone who is a brother. Daha lav achivhu. You cannot be considered a brother, someone who actually has this institution of yibum, if you are a mumar. Ve'ein zakuk chalitza. She requires no chalitza whatsoever. Ad kan. V'lo yadana, the Torah says himself now, commenting on this. V'lo yadana lama lo tia eshet mumar zkuka liyavam. I don't understand this reasoning at all. V'gam ma chiluk yesh ben im haya yavam mumar kishani setelo. Or who cares? What's the difference between the cases when he was a mumar when they got married or not? Now, this is really a remarkable thing. The Torah tells us that two people get married, the husband dies without children, and he has a brother. Now, all of a sudden, because this brother has rejected Judaism, he has rejected Torah, So now Rav Yehuda Gaon is telling me they're not married anymore. So last I checked, marriage is a very serious institution in Judaism. And marriage in Judaism can end with either divorce or death. That's what we learned in Kedusha. And in the case of a husband who passes away and he has a brother, and God forbid there was no children, it's a very sad case, so then there has to be Yibum or Chalitza. So how is it possible that Rav Yehuda Gaon say this? Now, last I checked, he's a very, very important rabbi. What is the basis for such a thing? Now, as it happens, we only have 23 minutes to get into this. So we'll do our very, very, very best to understand this as best as we can in a concise manner in a short period of time. So listen to the following. Turn now with me, if you would. I really do want to try to solve this and understand what exactly is going on here. Let's turn to an unbelievable tshuva from Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg. Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg was most famously the author of the Sridei Eish. He was one of the Gedolei Hador in the last generation that was living in Europe before the breakout of the war. He survived the war, as did his writings. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Rabbi Dr. Eliezer Berkovitz, local hometown hero, actually had many of the tshuvot of the Sridei Eish in his briefcase. He was a person who ferried them out of Europe. He escaped with them, and that's why they're embers of the fire. All of these tshuvot that we have from him, at least the ones that came from before the war. So listen to this. Isha achat nafla lifnei shnei achim yevamim. So there was a certain case, there was a woman whose husband passed away, and she now is required to get yibum or chalitza from one of two brothers. Echad mehem hu mishumad. One of them is a mishumad. Sheyatza midat Yisrael. He has left the religion of Israel. He is now, presumably, since we are speaking, about Europe and I don't know, in sometime in the 20th century, he's probably Christian. V'hasheni hu kofer b'Hashem u'v'torato. And the second one is not, he hasn't converted to another religion, but he rejects all of Judaism. He rejects Hashem and Hashem's Torah. He very, very publicly violates every single tenet of Judaism, even Shabbat in public. And in accordance with the situation over here, and it seems like it will be easier to convince the Christian to go ahead and give his sister-in-law a chalitza, to do chalitza with her. It will be easier to convince him because maybe he's not so hateful towards Judaism, but the other guy, the kofer b'Torah, he is very strident in his rejection of everything involved in Judaism and mitzvot. He will not want to give her a chalitza. And if we turn to him, she'll be stuck. So it will be a lot easier to go to the brother who's rejected Judaism in favor, Rahman al-Litzlan, of Christianity. And we'll ask him, we'll say, hey, would you please go and give a chalitza? V'rav echad, and there was a certain rabbi, gadol u'meforsam, he was great and well known. He tirat ha'chalitza yidei mishumad. He said, okay, have the Christian brother do the chalitza. Kedei la'tirat ha'isha mikivlei ha'yigun, in order to release the woman from the chains of being an agona. Right? We all understand how very, very important it is to try to help every single woman, God forbid, to first of all prevent this from ever happening. But if a woman is stuck in a case, she's an agona. So all the Gedolei HaPoskim marshal all of their energy to try and release her. And his reasoning is Shemumar l'kol Torah kula lo adif mi mishumad sheyatza midat Yisrael shneim shavim l'chol minei pislut. These brothers are exactly the same so far as Judaism is concerned. One of them has rejected Judaism in favor of Christianity, the other one in favor of, let's say, atheism or something like that. They're the exact same halachically. Their wine, it would be considered wine that is suspect for being idolatrous. So in that being the case, let's just go with the brother who's close by, who's a mashumad, who's rejected Judaism in favor of Christianity. We'll ask him. That's the case that Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg gets. Now, this is a remarkable case. The only reason that we could be having this discussion where there's a certain rabbi, who we'll see who he is at the end of the story, the Sridei Eish actually doesn't hide it towards the end of the tshuva, he actually gives us the name. The only reason we can have this discussion is because of the at least partial acceptance of the opinion of Rav Yehuda Gaon. That we really do seem to find that at some level, there actually is a possibility that someone who rejects Judaism could be removed from the category of someone who is your ach, someone who is your brother. And perhaps not just for this halacha. This halacha is a wonderful test case, but it actually could be more broadly. So let's take a look in the sources in the Gemara, and we'll see how this plays out and how exactly it is that we can come to such an opinion by learning Gemara together. So let's turn over to the next sources. So source number 3 comes from the Gemara in Yevamot. So the Gemara in Yevamot tells us something rather straightforward, really appropriate to learn about right before Shavuot. So Tava Va'ala, let's say you have someone who came to convert to Judaism, and he went to the mikveh, he came out. He's finished now with the process of conversion, which we derive from everything that Moshe Rabbeinu did to convert the Jewish people at Har Sinai. So now he's gone to the mikveh, he comes out of the mikveh, Harihuki Yisrael L'chol Dvarav. Now he is a Yisrael in every single manner. Who cares? What do you mean? Obviously, he's Jewish. That's the point of converting, is for him to be Jewish. So here it is. The Hadar Be'umekadesh Bat Yisrael, Yisrael Mumar Karina Be'vi Kedusha of Kedushin. That if he says, you know what, I actually don't like Judaism so much, and I'm kind of sick of it, and it was difficult, and I'm not so interested in continuing to be a Jew anymore, I'm going to go back to my old religion or do something else. Nonetheless, he is called a Yisrael Mumar. He is known as a Jew who rejects Judaism. That's what we call him, and therefore his Kedushin still counts. So even if now, presumably, we ought to assume, even if he's now living as a Christian or something else, we'll say, okay, or perhaps he's a pagan, something like that. Nonetheless, we'll say, okay, he's a Yehudi Mumar, he's Yisrael Mumar, but he's still Jewish, and if he went to be Mekadesh someone, so that probably counts. And the Gemara Sanhedrin tells a famous story about Achan, who sinned by stealing from Yericho. It's Me'ila. He commits this treachery, and the Gemara goes through all of the various ways we can understand him as having truly violated Judaism to the very core of it, and the Gemara utters a very famous phrase, which is Yisrael afal pi shachata Yisraelhu. I don't want to read it inside because there's just not enough time, and life is too short, so you'll have to trust me, that's what it says. Also, you can look at the packet if you want. So Yisrael afal pi shachata Yisraelhu, a Jew who has sinned is a Jew. Right? A Jew is a Jew. That's the way that it goes. There really does seem to be no basis for any sort of approach like Rabbi Yehudai Gaon, or like we'll see the Sri Deish is very concerned for, based on these two sources. And Rashi himself has a tshuva about this, and he says the following thing in source number 5. So Rashi tells us, there's a special halacha in Judaism that whenever I meet a fellow Jew, so I have to treat him like he's close family. So for instance, if my brother were to ask me for a loan, so of course I wouldn't charge him interest because he's my brother. So there's a special halacha that it's not just my brother who gets this special treatment. Actually, all Jewish people get this special treatment, and that's why I'm not allowed to charge any interest to any Jewish people who need a loan from me. So Rashi says, you know what? I might have had a hava amina that if someone goes and rejects Judaism and says, look, I'm a Christian now, I'm not interested in Judaism, and he comes to your bank for a loan, maybe I can charge him interest. Why not? So Rashi ruled, it's absolutely forbidden to take any interest from a Jew who has converted now to another religion, because we still call him your brother. He's still considered Jewish. He's only called a Jew who has unfortunately rejected our religion and our relationship with Hashem. Because it says who the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that even though he has sinned, doesn't matter what kind of sin, he is a Jew. And now Rashi gets very explicit with us. And the same thing is true absolutely when it comes to a get or chalitza, which is of course the case that we started with, because the Sri Deish is concerned that perhaps it wouldn't be wise, certainly not lechatchila, to go to the Christian brother first, because maybe he's not in a position to do chalitza. Maybe he's not really in a position to release this woman from the chains of Igun, and they must go to the brother who has rejected Judaism entirely. So Rashi does not share that position at all. Rashi looks at the Gemara in Yevamot, he looks at the Gemara in Sanhedrin, he tells you Yisra Afapisha Chata, Yisrahu, that's the way that it goes. A Jew is a Jew, doesn't matter what he does, and that includes for Ribit any special treatment you would give him because he's your Jewish brother. That applies to him. It applies to Yibum and Chalitza, no less. That's one way of looking at this. However, it is Judaism. We like to complicate life. So these are not the only Gemaras about this. And there are some Gemaras that actually seem to go in the opposite direction. So for instance, if you take a look at source number 7, in the beginning of Chulin. So there was a certain shmua, there was a certain rumor going around that the people known as Samaritans had set up an idol on Har Gerizim, which was their major center, still is today. They had set up an idol and they had totally changed Judaism. Even though they had converted long ago to Judaism, they had become idolatrous. So Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yosef Shadra Rabbi Abba La'tuye Chamra Mibei Kutai. So Rabbi Yitzchak ben Yosef sends Rabbi Abba and he says, hey, would you do me a favor? Please go get wine from a certain Kuti guy, a certain Samaritan, whose family must have converted to Judaism, who knows how many hundreds of years ago. Ashkechea Saba. So now Rabbi Abba runs into a certain elder, and this elder says to him, Amar le, leit kan shomrei Torah. Are you telling me that there are no shomrei Torah anymore? No one keeps halacha anymore? The Kutim aren't Jewish; they're idolatrous. You can't drink their wine. You have to be suspicious that it may have perhaps been used for idolatrous purposes, and it would be forbidden in benefit. It would be forbidden to benefit from it whatsoever. So halach Rabbi Yitzchak v'siber dvarim lifnei Rabbi Abba. So Rabbi Yitzchak, Yitzchak. I swapped it. I apologize. Rabbi Yitzchak goes and he tells us to Rabbi Abba. Halach Rabbi Abba v'siber dvarim lifnei Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Asi. So he goes now to tell the great Gedolei Apostolim of that time, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi. And they did not move from there until they had until they made them entirely not Jewish. So, if I ask you, I assume everyone's muted over here, but if I were to ask you, what's the pshat of that Gemara? What's the pshat? If you just read the words, and this is not the only Gemara like this, if you just read the words, it sounds like there's some reality where the sages can sit down, and again, read the words, asa'um, they made them into. In the same, they turned them into people who are no longer Jewish. They changed their halachic status, right? We know that the halachic status of a person is very, very important, right? We talk about it all the time. You make aliyah, you're going to get married in Israel, right? I got married in Israel, I had to go to the Rabbanut, and they wanted to know, how do we know you're Jewish? So that's a determination they're trying to look into. Turns out I am Jewish, we're good. So the pshat over here is that potentially the sages can sit in a Beit Din and they'll come to the conclusion that someone ought not to be Jewish anymore. Now I know that there is a concept that hefker Beit Din hefker. There are times, not usually, but there are times when a Beit Din has the authority to declare something financial to no longer exist. They'll say, you know what, you owned that car, we declare you don't own it anymore. But I didn't know that there was such a possibility that they could actually declare the same thing about someone's status as a Jew. Now, we already know Rashi can't read that way. Rashi definitely doesn't understand the Gemara that way. It's impossible, because Rashi told there is no such thing. Someone who is Jewish stays Jewish. And the Rashba reads the Gemara over here, and he gives us, I think, an approach which probably sounds a lot like what Rashi might think. So look at this. V'hada amar Shmuel lo zazu mishamat she'asum goyim gemurim. All right, another Gemara where the same thing happens. They didn't move from there until they made them into goyim gemurim. Love the mera the Yisrael shenasa goy gamor v'oved avodah zara shein choshishin the Kedusha. That doesn't mean that if a Jew decides to become an entirely different religion, that we're not concerned about his Kedushin anymore. He's really not Jewish. Ela otan bilvad. It was those guys specifically. Shasum kegoyim gemurim mitchilatan v'ifkiu kiddushayin. In that case, Chazal said, we're going to treat those people as though they're entirely not Jewish, and we will uproot their Kedushin, which is a very, very complicated sugya. But it's an idea introduced in halacha that under certain rare circumstances, they're really super rare. I think there's 6 cases in all of Shas, and it's not something that's really ever been practiced aside from those 6 cases. But Chazal, in this case, so now we have a 7th, they undid their Kedushin in that particular case. But that wouldn't have happened ever again. So the Rashba is saying it's not that they really made them not Jewish. It means that they tried very hard to treat them like they weren't Jewish, because these are people who so left Judaism that there was no connection anymore. And eventually, of course, they assimilated. That's how the Rashba reads it. Presumably, that's what Rashi thinks as well, or something like that. We have different takes, however. This is not the only approach. As we said, if you just read the words of the Gemara, that's not what it looks like. Listen to the Marash Dam. V'im kain, since we learned that if a Jew sins, even very badly, that still the Kedusha, the Shem Kedusha, the sanctity of being a Jew still remains upon him. Rakmal the Achan stole something he wasn't supposed to take, but he wasn't the worst person in the whole world, right? He didn't actually violate every other mitzvah, even though the Gemara talks about that. It's really just an agadic idea according to the Rashbam. So if that is the case, we don't say that a Jew who sins is always a Jew. Only in that kind of case, where he had one particular bad sin. But if someone really violates Kol Torah Kula, well, then the Rashbam really thinks that there's such an institution as saying, well, that person is no longer Jewish. And that must be what was going on in the Gemara in Chulin that we just saw in the Gemara in Yevamot, which we didn't see other. That's a very different approach, right? That speaks to the idea of Rabbi Yehuda Gon. Okay, and Rav Moshe Feinstein himself entertains this notion, not as his preferred opinion. He tells us that he really agrees with something much more like the Rashba, but he does entertain this opinion. He says this is an idea that could have existed. He says over here, rather what probably happened is, look where the cursor is, that shekilkalu umitnagim ka'akum, they had regressed in their behavior. They were acting like they were not Jewish. This is like it's like a revelation that in fact in fact they never really converted to Judaism. They never intended to keep the mitzvot. Because if someone says, I'm converting to Judaism on condition that I don't have to accept Judaism, so that doesn't count. Okay, that's probably what happened according to Rav Moshe. But again, we do see this marash dam. Now, 7 minutes left. Okay, this is our challenge in life, is that there's too much Torah to learn in very little time, but we survive with this challenge. So the Rambam, when he paskins inside Hilchot Ishut, he just gives us the Gemara that we saw together from Yevamot. The Yisrael Mumar Shekidesh Afal Pishu Oved Akum Beratzono Harielu Kedusha V'Kemurim Mitzricha Get Mimenu. Somebody who rejects Judaism, that person is still a Jew. That seems to be the whole picture that we get from the Rambam in his major code, the Mishnah Torah. However, there's an alternate perspective over here, which we might glean from his Perush HaMishnah. So the Rambam wrote an amazing Perush HaMishnah. When the Rambam's family was running away from Spain and they ran to Africa and different places, and eventually they're going to land in Egypt. So the Rambam, when he was, I think he was like 18 to 23 when he was writing this, and they were running away, he didn't have any books with him, but he apparently did have some, ink and quill and paper, or parchment or papyrus, whatever it is, and he wrote down a perush of the Mishnah, a commentary on the Mishnah by heart, because he was the Rambam and he could do that kind of thing. So he tells us in his perush Mishnah in Nida in Parak Zayin. So Omnam, indeed, Hayom, these days, Sinei Akuti Asmo Imet Lo Yitame. A Kuti who previously, from many Mishnah, we can see rules where they are treated as Jews. So one rule that applies only to a Jew is that there is Tuma, impurity from a dead Jew. However, if a non-Jewish person passes away, and we may be very sad and we mourn their loss, but there is no institution of impurity, which is for another conversation we could have about why that exists and the laws of Tuma. However, the bottom line over here is that the Rambam says that a Kuti, even though he comes from an entire community which used to be Jewish, these days, if he passes away, he does not cause any impurity. They are entirely like idolaters. They cause no impurity in an ohel. So even if someone was standing inside a house with a kuti body, and this person has passed away, I don't know, he's the doctor, whatever it is, there's no tumah for him. He would stay entirely pure. That's the way it is. It sounds like from here that the Rambam holds something like the pshat of the Gemara and Chulin that we saw together. That there is some case where a person could totally lose their status as being Jewish. And Rav Soloveitchik discussed this, and it's brought in a book called the Rishimot Shiurim. So Rav Hershel Reichman, who was a Rosh Yeshiva at YU, wrote down many chidushim that Rav Soloveitchik had about different mesechtas. So listen to this. Rav Soloveitchik passed on a chidush that he had heard in the name of his grandfather, Reb Chaim Brisker. So Rav Soloveitchik's father is Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, who was the Rosh Yeshiva at YU before he was. And Rav Moshe Soloveitchik's father is the great Gaon Reb Chaim Brisker, who's the rabbi in Brisk. That's why it's called Brisker. So, V'hosif, Rav Soloveitchik added, V'hosif hagrach zatzal. And Reb Chaim Brisker of blessed memory added the following. Shemashma, it seems to be the case, the Fi HaRambam, according to the Rambam that we saw together, where he comments that a kuti has no impurity whatsoever when he passes away. Sheyesod hadin hu, the basis of this law is if there's a group of Jews who have absolutely rejected Judaism, and there's no more remnant of the name Jew upon them. No one will ever recognize that they are Jewish. And everybody around there also thinks that they're not Jewish. Then the sages have the ability to uproot any status of Kedusha, of being a Jew, from them, and to say they are not Jewish in every single manner, even Lakula, even for any leniency which might apply from that. In fact, this is an argument that Rabbi Chaim Brisker made. That applies even to descendants of the Jews from the Marranos, who originally everyone recognized that there was such a thing, socially speaking or socioculturally speaking. There was a Marrano, someone who was pretending to be Christian. Really, he was Jewish. But nowadays, you would never know who this person is, and therefore he's lost his status of being a Jew. And he ends over here, V'hu chidush nora. And this is a terrifying chidush, a terrifying novel idea shared in the name of Chaim Brisker. So Chaim Brisker tells us, really is a terrifying idea, that there is some reality where a person stops being Jewish entirely. That if he's part of a community where it's totally unrecognizable anymore that they're Jewish, they would be lost. And it would be permanent. And that would be even Lakula. So, it seems in the end that really we hold, certainly it seems like from all of our sources, that in 99.9% of cases, there is no such thing as a Jew losing his status as a Jew. On the other hand, there are Gemaras, and we see in the Rishonim and even in the Acharonim, that there are cases where such an idea is contemplated, that a person's status as a Jew could be lost, and the Sri Eish was concerned for that regarding this Christian brother, and he did not want to go to that Christian brother to go get chalitza. He wanted to go to the brother who had rejected Judaism, but not in favor of another religion. And he had a very, very big fight with the great Rogachover Gaon, and the Rogachover was known as the Gadol Hador. No one was more knowledgeable than he, and so he won the fight. And they went to the Christian brother to do chalitza, and he rejected it. And so the Sri Eish reports that the Rogachover actually viewed this as a siman min hashamayim. This was actually a sign from heaven that the Sri Eish, Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg, had been correct. They really should have gone to the other brother who rejected Judaism and not to the brother who had become a Christian. So we do see that there is some aspect of this lahalacha, at least lechumra, at least in the case of Yibum and Chalitza lechumra, where we really are concerned that someone may not have the status of being Jewish anymore. So it's going to be Shavuos. And obviously, thank God, we all have the privilege of celebrating Shavuot, and we don't have to, God forbid, be afraid this will happen to us. But we do have to be excited. We do have to be happy that this is our opportunity and our challenge to be Jews, to accept the Torah again every single year on Shavuot. And may we only be zocha to grow in our Judaism and grow in that acceptance and in our attachment to Judaism for us and every single person who is close to us. So thank you so much, everyone, for learning with me. I really, really appreciate it. I loved learning with you, and I hope we have more opportunities like this soon in the future. Chag Sameach. I'm going to jump off so that someone else can take the next cheer.
Thank you so much.
Everyone. Have a
lovely
evening.
Sprung.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.